June of 1853. Nebraska Territory. 7 children inside a wagon that smells like a sick ward in August. Bedding unchanged since Missouri. 100 degrees under that canvas. The movies gave you crisp calico and clean faces. The diaries tell a different story. Of all the hygiene horrors packed into a 4x10-foot wagon box, which one killed the most people on the Oregon Trail? It is not the one you would guess. And the most brutal fact on this list is not the biggest killer. Hold both of those. Now, before we go any further, tap that subscribe button. You will not want to miss where this leads. We are going straight to the primary sources. The women who wrote by firelight after 15-mile days. The Army captain who published a survival manual, the physician who counted the dead. Spring of 1852. 50,000 people on one road, a wagon bed 4 feet wide and 10 feet long, carrying 1,000 pounds of supplies and an entire family. 2,000 miles. 5 months. No resupply past the jumping-off towns. No doctor west of Fort Laramie. Once those wheels turned, the body was on its own. Let us start at the bottom and work our way up to the one that filled the most graves. Number 15. Cooking your food over animal dung. West of the Missouri River bluffs, the trees disappeared. No wood meant no fire unless you found something else to burn. Lodisa Frizzell wrote in 1852 about the first time she cooked over buffalo chips. She called it revolting. Within a week, she stopped noticing. Children were sent out every evening with sacks to collect dried dung. Chips had to be bone dry. Wet ones smoked into the food. A chip fire burned cooler than wood. Bread took longer. Meat charred unevenly. Captain Randolph Marcy's guidebook gave explicit instructions on how to burn them efficiently. The smell coated every meal for 5 months. Nobody died of it, but it tells you where the bar started on this road. Number 14. No dental care for 2,000 miles. Marcy listed dental forceps in his recommended kit. Iron pliers for pulling teeth on the open prairie. Dr. Israel Lord, traveling in 1849, noted toothaches as a constant complaint in every camp. Hardtack and dried meat ground enamel to nothing over 5 months. An untreated abscess could drain into the jawbone and become blood poisoning. The only remedy was extraction by whoever had the steadiest hand. No anesthetic. A leather strap to bite down on if you were lucky. The forceps were packed because everyone knew you were going to lose teeth on the way west. Number 13. The same clothes for 5 months straight. Amelia Stewart Knight wrote about skirts caked with mud so heavy they added pounds to every step. Catherine Hahn noted hemlines dragging through axle grease and animal waste. Women wore full-length dresses that caught every splash the trail could throw. Wool never dried. Wet seams rubbed skin raw day after day. Open sores formed at the waist, the neck, the inner thighs. They could not heal because the same filthy cloth sat against them the next morning. A laundry day required a full halt near good water. Most wagon captains allowed it perhaps twice on the entire crossing. 2 washings in 5 months. Number 12. No privacy on the open plains. Hundreds of miles without a single bush or rock tall enough to stand behind. Catherine Hahn described women forming circles with their skirts held wide to shield each other. That was the full accommodation the trail offered. Women held their needs for dangerous lengths of time. Urinary infections and severe bowel cramping followed. When dysentery struck, privacy became physically impossible. You went where you were, in full view of the company. Remember this one. The inability to manage human waste away from camp and water feeds directly into what is coming above. Number 11. Body lice by week 3. Universal. Every family, every wagon. Ezra Meeker described it in his account of 1852. Every night, families sat together cracking lice between their thumbnails before attempting sleep. The wagon interior was an incubator. The only real remedy was boiling all clothing and bedding. That required fuel and halt time nobody could spare. Some emigrants burned their clothes at journey's end. Body lice carry epidemic typhus. Nobody on the trail knew that. Typhus deaths in the records are usually listed simply as fever. The mechanism was invisible. The misery was not. Number 10. Months without bathing a single time. The last full bath most emigrants took was in Missouri. The next would be in Oregon, 5 months between. When rivers were accessible, women bathed fully clothed for modesty. Men sometimes swam, but swift currents drowned enough of them that many companies forbade it. Skin conditions became universal. Boils, fungal infections, the alkaline dust of the high plains mixed with weeks of unwashed body oil and cracked the skin open. By mid-journey, emigrants described each other as unrecognizable. And broken skin in those conditions is an open door. We are climbing toward what waited on the other side of that door. Number 9. Menstruation without sanitation. The subject almost no diary mentions directly. That silence is itself the evidence. Catherine Hahn's cyclical references to feeling unwell at regular intervals. Rags were reused without proper washing because water could not be spared. Fabric that should have been boiled was merely rinsed and returned to use. Half the immigrant population managed this silently for 5 months while walking 10 to 15 miles a day beside the wagon, not riding inside it, but walking, completely absent from every film depiction of the crossing. And nobody put it on a screen. Not once. Number 8. The wagon itself. A 40-square-foot oven and sick room, 4 feet wide, 10 feet long. Canvas bonnet, trapping heat above 110 degrees on summer days. No cross ventilation unless both ends were untied, which let in choking alkaline dust. When someone fell ill, they lay in that box breathing stagnant air, sweating into bedding the whole family shared. Most immigrants chose to sleep under the wagon rather than inside it because the box was unbearable. Hollywood puts entire families sitting comfortably inside, clean blankets, room to move. The diaries say you could barely turn over without elbowing a child or knocking a flour sack loose. That wagon was not shelter. It was the problem. Number 7. Food spoiled before you could eat it. By week 6, the weevils were in the flour barrel. Catherine Hahn documented bacon going rancid in the summer heat. Throw it out and starve, or sift the weevils by hand and bake with what remained. No fresh vegetables survived past the first week. By month 3, scurvy symptoms appeared. Bleeding gums, loose teeth, wounds refusing to close. A full food outfit for a family of 4 cost $150 to $200. Roughly $5,500 today. You could not afford to throw food away on that road. You ate what you had, rot and all. And your body answered for it. Number 6. Wound care meant infection was nearly certain. Dr. Israel, Lord documented it through 1849. Axe injuries, crushing wounds from wagon wheels, accidental gunshots, far more common than any movie suggests. No antiseptic existed that worked. Joseph Lister would not use carbolic acid until 1867. Wounds were dressed with strips torn from clothing stiff with weeks of filth. River water used to flush a cut was the same water animals had died upstream. Gangrene and sepsis were routine outcomes from injuries that today would need a bandage and a tetanus shot. The only water is brown. The only cloth is filthy. That is the arithmetic. and the arithmetic was final. Number 5. One shared cup for the entire company. Here is where the killing starts to show its shape. Jesse Applegate described the routine in 1843. One water barrel, one tin dipper, 40 mouths at every noon halt. Healthy, sick, it made no difference. The same cup passed from lip to lip. Germ theory would not be accepted until the 1880s. They had no concept of the invisible thing passing from one mouth to the next. Once disease entered through one person, the shared cup guaranteed it reached everyone within days. This one looks small, a tin cup, but hold it in your mind. It connects to something bigger. Number 4. The dead animal corridor. You smelled it 2 miles before you saw it. By 1852, the Platte River Road was an open graveyard of livestock. Ezra Meeker wrote that dead oxen lay so thick you could step from one carcass to the next without touching ground. Trail historians estimate 30,000 to 50,000 dead animals along the corridor in peak years. Oxen that drank from alkali pools died within hours and were left where they dropped. Companies following behind walked through miles of active decomposition. The runoff drained directly into the same water sources the next company would drink from. Flies bred in the millions and moved from carcasses to food, cook pots, open sores, the faces of sleeping children. The contamination was flowing downhill, into the water. Remember that. Number 3. The dead rode with the living. When someone died of cholera at 2 in the morning, the body stayed in the wagon until dawn. The family lay beside it until first light. A cholera victim in the final hours purged fluids from both ends of the body, uncontrollably, massively. Those fluids soaked into the bedding. The family slept beside the body because there was nowhere else to go in the dark. At dawn, the body was wrapped in whatever could be spared and buried in a scrape barely 18 inches deep. Wagons were driven over fresh graves to hide them from wolves. Then the family climbed back into the same wagon, onto the same bedding, and continued west. Hold this one. Let it sit. This is not a fact. This is a night, a real night, in a real wagon with a real family. We are coming back to it. Number 2. The trail became a river of human waste. 50,000 people, one road, no sanitation infrastructure of any kind. Emigrants camped on the same ground the previous company had used days earlier. The same water source used for drinking was the same one the last group had used as a latrine downstream. Dysentery made control impossible. Excrement accumulated near wagons, near cook fires, near the riverbank where water was drawn each morning. In the cholera years, 1849 through 1852, each company contaminated the ground and water for the company behind it. By midsummer, the road from Missouri to Oregon was functionally an open sewer 2,000 miles long, and not one person on it understood why people were dying. The dominant medical theory blamed bad air. Miasma. They could smell the dead animals. They could not smell the cholera. Number 1. The water. The water killed more people on the Oregon Trail than everything else on this list combined, and it connects nearly every entry below it into one killing mechanism. Dr. Israel. Lord documented its speed in 1849. Healthy at breakfast, dead by sundown. Some faster. Amelia Stewart Knight noted fresh graves along the road every single day for weeks in June of 1853. Vibrio cholera entered the overland trail system through steamboat passengers arriving from New Orleans in 1849. It spread through fecal contamination of water. The Platte, the Sweetwater, the Humboldt. Each became a transmission corridor. Cholera killed in hours. Victims died of dehydration so severe the skin turned blue-gray. The The eyes sank into the skull, the fingers wrinkled as though submerged for days. One company in 1852 buried 14 members in 2 weeks, all drawing from the same stretch of river. The shared cup at number 5, that was the water. The dead animals at number 4 draining into the water. The human waste at number 2 flowing into the water. The wounds washed at number 6, washed with the water. The fluids from the dead at number 3 carried by the water. Every hygiene failure on this list drained into the same place. And every morning a mother filled a cup from that place and handed it to her children. So why did they not just boil it? Some did. Marcy recommends it in his guidebook. But that guidebook was published in 1859, after the worst years were already over. The guide most emigrants actually carried, Lansford Hastings' book from 1845, says nothing about boiling water at all. Buffalo chips burned cool, not hot enough to maintain a rolling boil for the volume a family needed daily. Time was the enemy. Companies pushed 15 to 20 miles a day. The grass ahead was being consumed by the wagons in front. Slow down and your animals starve. And beneath all of it lay the deepest problem. They did not believe water could be dangerous. Miasma theory said bad air caused disease. The actual mechanism, invisible bacteria passing from gut to gut, was a concept that did not exist in their world. The knowledge came too late, reached the trail years after the graves were already dug. And here is where the legend earns its reckoning. The covered wagon in 1923. Clean wagons, clean faces. The only enemies are river crossings and arrows. Wagon train on television. 8 seasons. Not one episode about disease. Not one mention of cholera. How the West was won in 1962. Pioneers in pressed linen who never sweat a day on screen. The diaries existed the entire time. Amelia Stewart Knight's diary was published in the 1920s. Applegate's account was in print by 1876. The record was always available, but the version that sold tickets and filled classrooms was the clean one, the one without the smell. They chose a pretty story over real people, and the real people deserved better. The deadliest hygiene failure on the Oregon Trail was the water. Cholera killed more emigrants than gunfire, drowning, snakebite, and native attack combined, by a factor of 10. But the most brutal fact on this list is not number 1. It is number 3. It is the mother who slept beside her child's body until dawn because the company would not stop, who climbed back onto that same bedding and kept moving west. Because the water is a statistic. 20,000 dead across 2 decades. And number 3 is a person. A real person in a real wagon on a real night in 1852. She got up the next morning and kept going. That is what your ancestors were, not the clean figures on a movie screen. People who endured what no screen could bear to show and never stopped moving. They buried their children beside the road in graves too shallow to keep the wolves out. And the next morning they filled the cup from the same river, handed it to the child still living, and walked another 15 miles west. And if you want the truth behind another piece of frontier life the movies never showed you, the next one is waiting for you right now.